there's a stigma attached to dropping techniques.
Right.
And then Kataguma...
I'm sure Shohei, this is not Shohei's game.
No, it's definitely not Shohei's game.
This is Judo.
But Judo newaza is beautiful in its own way. The Japanese Judo girls are known for having good newaza overall. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shintaro Higashi Show with David Kim. Not Peter Yu, David Kim. How are you? What's going on?
Doing great, man. It's a beautiful day.
We have a champion, right, that we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a very special episode.
We're going to take a look at Natsumi Tsunoda. She was the gold medalist in the last Paris Olympics. And her claim to fame is the Tomoe Nage and the armbar. And given sort of the mixed audience we have here, primarily judo, but also jiu-jitsu, I thought it might be a very interesting case study because she pulls those techniques off when you don't really think she should be able to do it.
Yep.
And I think everyone, regardless of whether you're a judo person or a jiu-jitsu person, could learn something from what she's doing.
So Tomoe Nage, very special move, great for judo and BJJ. What's unique about her Tomoe Nage is that she goes straight back Tomoe Nage, which is very difficult to hit, really easy to stuff if you're only doing that initial attack. And majority of people use it as a way to get out of a bad position. That's what's really cool, right? I'm losing. I go for Tomoe Nage, knowing that it's probably not going to work. It's a straight back Tomoe Nage. They see it coming because it's right in front of them. They stuff it. It goes to newaza. At least I didn't get thrown with their favorite throw.
And is that why people tend to favor sort of going left or right when they throw the Tomoe Nage traditionally?
I mean, so it's a little bit more tricky, right? Because you're like diving underneath, spinning, you're using momentum. You could hide it with kochi ochi. You go to the sleeve side, the lapel side. Straight back Tomoe Nage is just straight back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then so the people who are real good at Tomoe Nage for throwing tend to have great Yoko Tomoe Nage off like an inside trip or a feint uchimata or something like this. So a person that just goes for a direct straight back Tomoe Nage, that is extremely rare.
Right.
Extremely rare.
Yeah. And that's why it doesn't look like when you watch her do it, unless they're standing straight up, it just seems like it shouldn't work. I mean, that's the weird thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't work.
It seems like it
sit
shouldn't
down,
work.
face down, and there's a lot of different components to it that makes it very successful for her. It's actually the secondary leg that's doing a lot of the work. And then the way she uses her arms concurrently with her legs that kind of make this thing all work together. And now everyone in the world knows that she does it, but she still has a lot of success with it. So it's a really, really interesting thing.
Right. So now maybe we can start from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So you talk about everything working together, and we can get to that. But when you talk about that straight on, I mean, it almost looks like a guard pull, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And so what between her two, just using her legs, what's the dynamic going on there?
So she has a posting leg, which is the primary leg doing the Tomoe Nage. And majority of the time when it's taught, you're taught to pull the person onto the bottom of your foot. And if it's completely horizontal to the floor, it's parallel to the floor, that's a great guard pull because you want to create that separation in the frame before you actually sit down. So judo is a little bit different with Tomoe Nage where you're kind of pulling the foot and then pulling the person on top, and you want to almost load them onto your leg so your leg is a little bit more of an angle coming down. Right? And majority of the people just only sort of focus on that primary leg. Natsumi just she'll place that foot there, but as she sits down, she'll bend the knee and then she'll use that secondary leg as like a butterfly hook underneath the foot, underneath the hip, underneath the butt, and then she uses it to pull the person onto that leg or like lift the hips. So it's like using those 2 feet together very well. That's what she does so good.
Okay. And so now, maybe we can talk about the arms, and then we can talk about the specific situations, when people are sprawling out, how she still makes it work. So on the arm side, what's the dynamic there? What's she doing with her hands?
So usually it's a lapel sleeve, and she's, we're going to see these clips, and she goes lapel sleeve, and she goes lapel armpit, and then sometimes she goes to sort of the opposite side also. She goes to both directions. But the key with her lapel side hand, the sleeve side hand, she tucks that elbow hand behind the elbow. So she sort of like pulls the person forward as opposed to like flaring her elbows up and then trying to pull using sort of like this face pull motion. She likes to keep her elbows a little bit tucked and then pull the elbow right behind the elbow. So you see the hand placement behind the elbow, which is sort of a key component, and it creates a little bit more of a better forward pull. And then that combined with the butterfly hook together, and then the leg, and now when they're over the foot, then she kind of creates that lift using both legs, right? So it's like she's like has a post foot and the butterfly hook, and then she uses it together to like sort of sandwich the person there, and then kind of like load them up.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
so she's sort of behind the knee and the elbow. So she's almost controlling those two joints in a way, right? Like they're both kind of hooking on her joints and pulling. Okay.
And I don't know if we saw this in the clips that we're going to watch today, but I've seen sort of like the person sitting back, and then she uses that momentum when they're sitting back to kind of pull her upper body up off the floor. And then she uses that negative space behind her shoulders to like rock back into that while she's using her arms and then pulling it forward, right? And obviously the lapel hand sleeve or the armpit sleeve you'll see in the second clip, she sort of almost doing like a hammer curl, or like sometimes she flares her elbows out too, but she's pulling the person forward. So just the upper body pull is not enough. Just the primary leg is not enough. It really is the magic of all three of those components kind of working together equally. If she can't quite sit up fully and then go back right away, she'll fall to the side a little bit, right? And then and then that shifts the opponent's weight slightly to one side, which makes it easier to elevate that other side because the weight shifts away from that side. You know what I mean?
Just out of curiosity, let's say it almost turned into a butterfly sweep. You know, because I could see that happening if she's going on one side.
Yeah.
Would she get a score for that or no?
Yeah, she will. I mean, because the opponent has to be grounded with knees and elbows touching for it to be considered newaza.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
But if they sat down onto their knees and there was zero action for like, 4 seconds, maybe they might not call it, but they can.
Yeah.
I mean, you see Sumi Gaeshi, is butterfly sweep, and then, Sumi could go to both corners.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. The big difference between Sumi Gaeshi and Tomoe Nage is Sumi Gaeshi requires grip fighting into better position for your hands. So Tomoe Nage is a little bit better because you could be in losing position and you could just sit down and go. That's why it's frequently spammed as like a get out of jail free card.
That has been a criticism of her, I think, is that
yes.
Especially in the last Olympics, people felt like she was spamming this Tomoe Nage. But I sort of figure they're sprawling on her, so it's sort of dangerous.
If there's zero off balance and then you just drop and they keep their chest upright and then there's separation of the chest and it doesn't look like a real attack, then they'll get penalized for a false attack because they want to penalize people doing just bad attacks to kind of like, play that shot clock or play that game of like, look, I'm attacking, but this person's not. Oh my God, I'm about to get thrown. Let me just drop back to my back. So they try to penalize all sorts of negative judo. And, that is definitely a criticism of her. But if the person has to sprawl out, if the person has to cartwheel out, it's that's
a real attack.
Yeah, it's a real attack. Yeah, the defendant.
You can. So now, this is interesting because she's got maybe the lapel and like an elbow or something like that. That does leave some arm to do something, like, to post for the person getting thrown, to do something. So how does that play into her strategy?
So a lot of the times there's like early stage Tomoe Nage defense, mid stage, late phase. And the late phase is like, oh my God, I'm getting loaded onto this leg. This person's going to take me over. And usually most judos play lapel sleeve. Mm-hmm. So if the person has my lapel on this side, my left side, my arm is free. So as I'm about to get loaded onto that foot, this is late stage defense. I'm going to dive to my hand that's free and then try to cartwheel out.
Right.
So what Tsunoda, and it's not just specific to her, some of these experts in Tomoe Nage will try to attack that arm going down to the floor. Because if it's going to the floor, they're trying to base, you could sort of underhook it for urigatame or wrap up the arm for juji as they're trying to spin out. So that's kind of a really cool maneuver that takes a very long time to develop, obviously. And then sometimes, you're elevating and you kind of like helicopter the person into like a juji. That's another option.
That's a very jujitsu thing to do.
Yeah, so that's the amazing thing, that you could helicopter that juji to the arm that you're controlling, which is a sleeve. And then if they're diving toward that free arm, which is they're trying to post with your lapel side, attacking that arm. So you could theoretically attack both arms. And the beauty of Tsunoda, and you'll see in these clips, that she has a posting primary leg with the right leg and then also the left leg. So she could reverse it to both sides. So now you have multiple ways.
Yeah.
What is the word?
All the corners.
Permutation,
Yeah,
combination.
yeah.
You know, yeah. Give me the
Yes, we
math.
can
You're
calculate
the
the
Harvard guy.
probabilities.
Yeah.
We can
What is
calculate
the yeah? So many ways into this thing. You know, imagine if she was able to do this with sort of the Yoko Tomonage with the Kanto choke to one side, and Yoko Tomonage
Yeah.
with the Jujitsu to the other side. Now all of a sudden, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe she needs to purchase my Tomonage video. That's on Higashi
You know, maybe she could learn something. Yeah, maybe she could learn something.
Probably
you know?
can. Yeah, probably can.
Set her up for the next quad. So that's interesting. So we've basically covered this lesser utilized style of Tomoe Nage.
Yeah.
Her setups, it's not really a failed, I guess, throw. I mean,
Yep.
she does get him to the ground, but maybe it's not a scoring, like, to the back. And when they post, she has options right now to either arm to sort of transition to newaza, like, right away. Yeah.
And you too can learn this. Everyone can learn this. You know the best way to learn this is? The best way to drill it is a 3-person uchikomi.
Ah, okay.
And I think you've seen me teach this.
Yes.
When the third person is holding the belt. So they're essentially keeping the person's core tight to their body so the person's suspended for longer. And you're not structurally lifting with your legs, but there's a lift. There's like an upward lift, right? Mm-hmm. And then I probably made a video about this before. That way you can sort of take your time and it's not taxing on your legs and it's a little bit more controlled. And you could slowly see where the reaction goes and then kind of develop your own feel for the technique, having that third person support. So you could literally go in there and say, okay, I'm going Yoko Tomonage to this side, elevating with my butterfly hook, and then I'm going for the juji on this sleeve side arm, and then next time you're going to go, okay, I'm going to go straight back to Tomonage. Can you go to your free arm to the opposite side, and then as you're doing it, underhook it and trying to go for a juji like this? But it's controlled, and then you could go slowly.
Yeah.
And then gravity doesn't take over because the person who's standing is physically lifting the person upwards. So that's
No,
a
that's
great
true
way to
because
learn.
that's true. I would have gotten that wrong, even after my facetious answer, because I would not have thought of the 3-person drill there. But it can be scary, even when you like balloon sweep somebody.
Yep.
Like I did it the other day, and I'm looking. I'm like, I hope this guy tucks his head, I mean, because he's going straight over.
But sometimes you change directions in the air in Tomonage, and you think you're going one direction, they're guiding you in the other direction, and you go straight down onto your head. So having that third person there kind of gives you a very good feel for the technique, and then it's actually really good for the person taking it because of proprioception.
You're just pulling out all the vocabulary today, my
Yeah.
friend.
You like that?
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm duly impressed. So let me ask you this question, because she's obviously had a lot of success with this at the highest levels of judo. Obviously, we think the jiu-jitsu folks can learn from this as well. But how do you think it may look the same, when you see it? But how might this change given the different reactions you typically get from a judo guy versus a jiu-jitsu guy? Do you think there would be any difference in how they react, or is this something that really truly is just universal between the two rule sets?
I think there's more overlap here than most things in judo and jiu-jitsu. I think judo with Tsunoda, she probably has a much better ochi-kochi game than the average jiu-jitsu practitioner. So having that threat of, oh my God, if I'm a little bit more upright, or if I lean back on my heel, or if I'm anticipating on Tomonage too much, this person's going to sweep me straight to my back. Having that makes it a little bit more of a different thing. It adds complexity. It adds a little bit more like a sophisticated game, right? And then also with BJJ, you have the option of, oh, the foot's coming up. I could just stuff it with my hands. As opposed to in judo, leg grabbing is still illegal. So the person timing a Tomonage to a leg pick is a little bit more of a thing, obviously, right? So now, without the threat of a backward ochi-kochi, you take that out, and then all you're doing is trying to time that initial Tomonage where you just reach down and grab a leg. It looks a little bit different. So faking that Tomonage, faking that foot coming up, that becomes sort of the important part to kind of stagger the timing. And then Tsunoda, if she goes right foot on the hip first, left foot butterfly, she could pump fake that foot and then go with the other foot on the hip and then butterfly that side foot. So that stuff kind of matters. And a lot of the jiu-jitsu practitioners have a certain open guard preference. Having my right foot on the hip and then doing delahiva with my left leg. So if they have sort of that preference and not able to do it to one side over the other side, because if you put your left foot on the hip now, right, it's
Yeah,
sort
it
of a
sort of screws
different
you up.
position. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of messes you up. So jiu-jitsu people usually tend to pull guard one way or two
Yeah.
ways. It's not that sophisticated, I think, you know? So then if they do that, you can anticipate it a little bit more. Obviously, I'm not talking about like the JTs or the Marcuses. I'm talking like just general population of jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
guys.
people like me. Yeah, I get it. And I think also one of the big things too, I think in jiu-jitsu, you're when you pull, you're used to sort of the reason you want to maintain that distance, right? You're not used to
Yeah.
pulling people up onto the foot, which we've talked
Yes.
about before in any
Yeah.
in any Tomoe Nage. And
Yeah.
that can feel weird too, because it almost feels
It
like
can. Yeah.
I guess maybe you could think about pulling X kind of, but
Yeah,
just
can.
not really.
But this is the thing, right? If
Yeah.
you post that right foot on the hip, and then you put the left foot in as the butterfly for that Tomonage thing that Tsunoda does, but you're a De La Riva player with the other person leading with their left leg, you have to undo that butterfly hook and swing it over, right? And
Yeah.
then you got to post on that thigh and then push out, and then
Yeah.
you got... So it's like it adds another extra step, and your thing is
Yeah.
not as smooth. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Or you do it on that side and it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And it
And
works
then,
out awesome.
yeah, so it's got to fit with your thing. Obviously, she's sort of figured out a thing here. And then, the common
Right.
judo practitioner will just drop their hips and
Yeah.
they might cartwheel out.
But they've
But
got
yeah,
to know that that arm is hanging out too. I mean, they're not stupid.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It's very good. She's very, very good at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back maybe. I mean, she's a great example of sort of a Japanese athlete who is good at newaza, picking
Yep.
up the armbar, that sort of thing. And I guess when you look at Uta Abe or
Yeah.
some of the other girls that have come through, or women, I should say,
Yep.
have come through the Japanese team, has this been something you've noticed as a theme just generally for the Japanese women, concentrating on this type of stuff, newaza type stuff, or is this really more like a matter of independent sort of idiosyncratic skill among like there's every generation has somebody like
Yeah.
this kind of deal?
Yeah, so straight back Tomonage to Juji, straight back Tomonage with a lot of success with secondary effort. I think that's pretty unique to Tsunoda. And you haven't seen that much. There's actually one judoka on the world scene, Simaniska from Poland.
Oh,
And she's unbelievable. You gotta pull her up, man. She's another one that does kind of like her. She's not like an Olympic champion yet, but
Right.
she has a spectacular judo style, all Tomonage, all Juji, but a little bit more variety in the way she enters. So she's a little bit more exciting because she goes for different stuff and she kind of angles off. I'm gonna guess it's jiu-jitsu influence. I don't want to say that, because judo
how dare you?
by itself, yeah,
How dare you?
yeah. But judo newaza is beautiful in its own way. But it's a lot of turnovers. The Japanese judo girls are known for having good newaza overall compared to some of these other countries. But someone that has Tsunoda's style, I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
rare.
Right.
She's
I
definitely
really
an
wonder
outlier.
how she came up with it. I'm very curious. How
I don't know, man. Maybe traditionally Tomonage is not the most popular move.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
So
somebody like she figured it out somehow.
it's tough to
That's
get good
her-
at Tomonage, especially in Japan, because when you're spamming that thing, people are like, "Come on, man, are you
Get
kidding
annoyed.
me?" They get annoyed because you have to have so many shots on goal to get good at it.
Yeah.
And then if you've repped it 1,000 times, that's 1,000 times where your opponent's like, Jesus, like, what are you doing?
Get off of me.
Yeah, get off
Get
your
off
back.
of
Stop
me.
flopping over. And I'm certain coaches were like, come on, just stand up and, what are you doing that? It's not, there's a stigma attached to dropping techniques.
Right.
And then Kataguma.
I'm sure Shohei. This is not
dropped it.
Shohei's game.
No, it's definitely not Shohei's game.
This
Yeah.
is judo.
He loves the upper body lockup.
This is judo.
Yes. And historically, most people use Tomonage as a way to get out of a bad position.
Yeah.
So there's definitely sort of a stigma. If I'm in the dojo and if I see someone dropping Tomonage 2 or 3 times, I'm going to wonder, right?
Yeah.
Like, does your gripping suck? Are you doing it to bail out of a bad position? What's going on here,
Right.
And then maybe they're truly trying to develop that throw and they're trying to be offensive, but 9 times out of 10, my Tomonage when I was competing was purely just for that reason.
Bailout.
You know, what I'm going with, bailout. I used to fight hundreds, a lot of tall guys who were 6'2", 6'3". They'd come down the back and they would, right? I would drop in for a shot, and if that wouldn't work, I would fake that shot, and then I'll drop back for a Tomoe Nage. I don't think I throw one person with Tomoe Nage. You know, since
But it
I
just
was
gives you
like,
that reset, I guess, right?
it gives you a reset. It takes you out of a bad position, and you have to cycle through these bailout throws, because if you do it every single time,
Right.
they're going to capitalize, and then they're going to exploit that.
Right,
You know,
because you become predictable. Yeah.
Exactly. So you do Tomoe Nage once, and then the next time you're in a bad position, you fake Tomoe Nage and go for a drop Senagi, you know, and then the third time you try to go for a bad Sumigaeshi, you know, and then you cycle through
Or a
those.
good one.
Or a good one if you're confident in throwing,
Right.
but, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of people use it as a tool to just get out of a bad situation on the feet. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Drew, Jason, Levon, Judo TV, HigashiBrand.com. Thank you very much. If you have business, you have business churn, Hakuin.ai. You could check out that, Hakuin.ai. Thank you very much. You too can be a sponsor. Go on to the Patreon link down below. And thank you very much. Thank you very much.